Morning, everyone. My name is Thashvir. First of all, thanks to the organizers and to my colleagues for the trip down. This is my first time to Katlehong, but I hail from a very similar town in Durban. I'm a son of an entrepreneur. My father was a panel beater. My mom was a housewife and did the books. Across the road was the auto electrician. And entrepreneurship and the communities from which we come is very much driven by trust, relationships, and as we look to digitize, I think those fundamentals still exist and are true today. So I'll preempt any questions around pricing. For Visa, we don't set any prices. How Visa fits into the ecosystem is the banks, the likes of shop-to-shop, Flash, the fintechs, our partners. And today, I'll give you a sense of, from a small business and an entrepreneurship perspective, how Visa thinks around small business, and not just in Katlehong, Gauteng, South Africa, but globally as well. We often think that we are unique in the challenges that we encounter and face on a day-to-day, but there's a small business owner sitting in Dar es Salaam, in Buenos Aires, in Canada, that also has the same issues, and the same reality is you need to be resilient, you need to look for opportunities to grow, and you can't do it alone. So there's a few slides that I'll go through, but I think one of the key things is when we use the jargon of, in our banking world, we call them issuers. So if you see the slide, issuers are banks. They also fintechs, you see a lot of, but it's any company that gives you a card as a small business. That will have a Visa logo at the bottom. You'll be able to use that at anywhere a card is accepted. And you can jump on a plane and go to over 200 countries in the world, and that card will be accepted. If any of your businesses purchase from some of the Chinese retailers, the Sheins, the Temu, the reality is your card is, you're able to purchase from them without doing anything extra or additional. The second one is acquirers, and that is about when you have that device, you need somebody to accept the payment. So that's often the banks or the fintechs, like Yoko was an example, but it's FNB, APSA, a whole host of them. And that's the ability to accept payments. Then the third is around the fintechs and the enablers. And this is where there's a lot around today in the world has moved based on technology. Pre-COVID, a lot of businesses had to think about how do you launch a business online. Now it is how do you run a business online. Just being able to allow shopfront online is one thing, but there's things like inventory and lots of different solutions that have now become very mainstream, and that cuts across many different industries. So there's a few global trends I'd like to share, just to show, and I use the example of South Africa not being unique, but one of them is around digitization. This view of digitization is not something only in South Africa. All over the world, technology has become a key enabler. If you the age of people opening businesses as well. You've got students who are running a side hustle. They've got businesses. It's no longer seen as your only revenue stream. There's lots of opportunities, and the entrepreneurial spirit is not now limited to just bricks and mortar. It's allowing a lot more access to different age groups, different types of opportunities. So we've seen that globally. I don't think you'll be in a payments or a conference that talks about digitization without hearing about artificial intelligence. The reality is it's a technology, a host of technologies that are moving quite rapidly, but a lot about it is around reconciliation in the payments world. The ability for a small business owner to know at the end of the day where do I sit in from a financial position? Am I able to order the next, if it's based on inventory type business? But I mean, if I reference my dad, as a panel beater, sometimes he would get a customer where the job is too big, and you'll have to turn away the job because you know you need to go and buy all the materials from the paint shop down the road, and you need that money. And you know, back in the day, there used to be a book, and somebody would be like, okay, I know you based on relationship, and when the customer pays you, you'll then settle them. But that's now, in today's world, there's also less of that relationship type opportunities. You know, the reality is that paint shop owner has to take a risk on the panel beater, who has to take the risk on the customer, because even if the car's complete and the customer can't pay, that car sitting in his lot is not going to help him pay the bills. It's, you know, so it's those sort of constraints where digitization will help in terms of cash flow. And that's what when we talk about working capital, you know, the gentleman prior spoke about, you know, the reality about loans and credit. It's a universal truth, and I don't think whether it's digital or physical cash, but one of the universal truths is you need money to make money. That's a fact. You know, if all you are relying on is the money in your cash register, that's going to be the amount, it's going to limit the amount you're going to be able to purchase and to be resilient as well. When, if it's a piece of machinery or if it's something that there's a late delivery, that there's at least a buffer in terms of working capital. And then the last one is about global money movement. One of the things I think, if you think about 20 years ago, the idea of a small business owner being able to order directly from China would have been, you know, wouldn't have been possible. You would have to be part of a buyer group, or, you know, so access to global markets is something that we've seen throughout the recent years. And I think that's also expanded now into our neighboring countries. The likes of Lesotho, Swaziland, you know, there's a lot of commerce that happens even within our borders, and that doesn't take away from the likes of, obviously, the big routes like China, but a lot of the trade and the movement around money and goods is also from an African continent perspective, which is an untapped opportunity. The next slide, and I guess one of the key things around the unique pain points and is about, as I mentioned, working capital. It's about the quick access. You know, those days of going to a branch, sitting there for hours, waiting to see the bank manager, then you have to fill out the form, then the bank manager tells you, oh, you don't have this document, then you must go home, come back the next day. Those days, and what we have seen globally, you can do a lot as a consumer. Today, banking apps, or you can go on your phone, you can, you know, the need to visit the branch has lessened. It really must be an extreme issue for you to go to the branch. And so from a digitization perspective, that need for working capital means you need to be able to get that quickly, and you don't, and I mean, the reality is even getting that capital, you need to be also to pay whoever, if it's a supplier. The second one is about the seamless way to pay and to receive payments. So the gentlemen that were on the stage, there's many devices. The reality is, if you start thinking about how do I accept card payments, it then means you're not limited to the amount of cash. Anybody, I mean, we'll just use December as an example. When you go out in December, and if all you have is the cash, you probably have an early night. But where you have card, you end up spending more because, you know, you think the night's over, and then, you know, there'll be like, it goes on, and so your spend. So as a business owner who has a restaurant or a bar, a tavern, whatever it may be, that additional spend is because people are using their cards. They're not, because if you tell someone, oh no, go to an ATM and come back with cash, when they're out the door, you're probably not going to see them. I mean, sometimes you will see them, but either way, it's that sort of incremental sales. It's the same thing if you're in a shop. I mean, most people know when you go into a shop, you're just going to duck the shop for one thing, and then you come out with a few others while you're there. But if you only had 50 Rand in your hand, you'll be very deliberate about how you spend that 50 Rand. Whereas, and so the opportunity in accepting cards is also about incremental spend while you're there, because from a consumer perspective, you're going to get that additional business, you'll get that opportunity. But it's also knowing that, nowadays not a lot of people have time to go to multiple stores buying individual things. So those opportunities in terms of additional cash and loyalty is key. The other one is about staying on top of finances. So a lot of the partners we have in terms of the banks, the fintechs, is not just being able to make a payment, is how do we, and they provide tools that help you understand what's the budgeting, where am I. I mean, when I started working and my mom and dad they got out of panel beating, they started doing something else. Probably for the first 10 years of my working life, I was their private banker. They'll just phone me and tell me, just transfer some money into this account, or this, I need to do something, you need to make a, purchase stock. And I think a lot of that being to know, and I always used to ask my mom in particular, is this business making you, is it profitable? Like, you're putting a lot in, do you actually know what you're getting out? And I always and they always say about small businesses, you're the person that gets paid last. Your salary doesn't come out first, it comes out last. And so staying on top of finances also means it's about resilience as well. COVID was a good example where everything stopped. If you had a restaurant and those doors closed, I mean, now we look back and we think about some of the crazy things we did to access, but the reality is there are things that happen that we have to be resilient, and staying on top of finances helps provide that view, because if if you're in survival mode from a day to day, it's really going to limit your ability to really grow and prosper. And I guess one of the things is not just from a finance perspective, from a reach, from a stability, from increasing your own footprint and beating the restaurant around the corner, because the reality is consumers have choice as well. If you can't service them, you may not see that customer again. So that is really key. And the final one is about rewards and loyalty. And I think in our community, loyalty is always, we always think, go for a haircut. You almost don't want to cheat on the guy who cuts your hair. You'll wait in line if you have to, because there's a loyalty built based on familiarity. But when it comes to payments, the reality is when you're going for that haircut, there's also that ability of then the guy's going to say, okay, do you want to shave? Do you want other things? As opposed to if I walked in there, I would have said, I just want a haircut in and out. So from a loyalty perspective as well, when you digitize, it's, we used to have those cards when you go to the car wash with the stamp, get the 10th car wash free. And everyone had those cards. But it's digitizing all of those things. So when we talk about the ecosystem, it's not just about payments. It's how do you create that loyalty to a business, to get that returning customer, because the point is it's harder to get a new customer than retain an existing customer that you have. And that's a key tenet around that still supports small business. And so when we look at small business, there's always three parts that we think about. And the slide, if you can see, it's quite small. The first one is how do business make payments? And that is to suppliers. If you think about things like rent, things like for your vehicle, you have to fill fuel. There's lots of operational costs that come around running a business. Then it's about how to receive payments. And receiving payments is, the easiest thing is to think about card. You have a card machine. What we've seen, and you see the image there, now even globally, technology has moved where your smartphone will be able to accept is the equivalent of the device. You can literally have the software running on your phone and someone can tap their card on your phone. So, and that means, if you think about it, the ability to accept payments will become the same like today. In other parts of the world, there's like even the payments are built into WhatsApp. There's PaySharp, there's lots of technology and enhancements around payments, but the ability to receive the payments means there's also greater opportunity to then get income. And the last one is around personal payments. I think, like my anecdote about when I speak to my mom and, I was their investor, into their business, a lot of, and mom did it, and I'm sure a lot of you in the room do it. You know, when you need money, you need money. Is that money sitting in your personal account or in your, you know, that's what you have to do to access the money. But the reality is, if you formalize the business side of things in terms of making payments, it also gives you an opportunity to go to the bank or the financial institution and get a loan. And I know, even in my dad's case, you know, there was always a perception credit was bad, or, you know, credit is a trap. But the reality is, whether you're taking the book with making notes and you're saying, okay, that's how many liters of paint you took and whatever sandpaper and whatever else you needed from a consumables perspective, that is still a form of credit. And the reality is, it is a irony of life. The more credit you take and the more successful you are in paying it, the more access and credit you unlock. So, and that gives also this very clear terms around it. And so for us, from a visa perspective, we look to support, and it's not just me, I'm just one individual, multiple people across the continent looking at how do we help the various partners in the ecosystem to digitize payments. And the reality is, and if you talk about, and I know the question came up around the 2.6% or the what we call MDR, which is merchant discount rate, the cost of accepting the card payment. The flip side is, the way I think of it is, what's the value of accepting the payment? Because if someone comes to you and says, I want to pay by card, and it says, I don't accept card, and they don't have cash, then you've pretty much lost that sale. So there's also that, and then you're going to get, you know, there's the upsell part of it. So that value of acceptance also means that you give the customer who's willing to pay the options to say, if you have cash, pay. If you have card, pay. And I think that's the narrative and how we look to build the ecosystem is from small businesses, communities, and the township is, and the previous speakers also mentioned it, the township is a key focus area, not just for small businesses, for the large corporates. You know, in my previous role, I worked at a bank. The large FMCGs, the likes of Coca-Cola, British American Tobacco. The reality is, the communities and the townships that we come from, it continuously moves every single day. It's not waiting for anyone. And I guess one of the final points, just if there are any of you that have a small business account with the bank, it could be, all you need to do is check on your bank card in the bottom right. You should see a Visa logo, and you'll see on this slide is a link. But today, if you have a small business account with any of the major banks through Visa, you actually have discounts that's available to you. Things like if you're using Microsoft 365, or if you're using, if you need to hire a car, there's lots of. We recently included some of the fleet. So like if you have a tracking device, if you actually just go to the website, you can actually redeem a discount on it. Because what we as Visa are trying to also invest in is, what is the value add to small businesses? Because any rand saved is a rand earned as well. So I'll leave the slide on if you want to jot down the URL, which is the address of the website, or even scan the QR code. But these are the things that we also are continuously looking to bring to the table and improve on, and including sessions like this and actively engaging with the communities like we are here today. So that's it from me. I don't know if there's any questions. Yes. Cool. I think they're coming with the mic.
Good day. My name is Paul Masilo from a company called Freshmore Brands. We're the first company in Africa to manufacture mouthwash packaged in a sachet. We also do biodegradable toothbrushes. My question to you and to the previous speakers, especially on your opening slide, you had a statement that says, pay and be paid, which means it's money coming in and money going out. But one of the struggles that we face as entrepreneurs is that challenge of generating income, balance, and trial whatever statements. Because those are your data that helps you to understand the health of your business. So my question is, what maybe future development ideas do you have around helping us? Because some of us are not that maybe accounting savvy to understand how to generate an income and probably a balance sheet and a trial balance. But those are very important for us to make decisions for our business. And it's a struggle for us as entrepreneurs, especially in the township. We could be good maybe in producing our products. We could be good in maybe doing whatever. But that key document of your income, balance sheet, and a trial, whatever thing, they're very important to help us to make better decisions. And therefore, it means when you are getting money from us or when we are using your facilities, please help us to generate those, because some of us are not good at them and they disadvantage us in terms of maybe tapping into your loans or tapping into facilities that can help us to grow the businesses. It's easy to get the money, it's easy maybe to pay them, but the thing is, do I understand the health of my finances and my business? Merry Christmas.
Absolutely. So I guess I have a follow-up question. Whether when you're talking about the understanding, are you talking from understanding and having that financial skills or the tools to do that? Because I guess, ironically, the two slides that I didn't present, one talks about the skills of the understanding of, because the understanding of being able to, doing your balance sheet or understanding what your flows are, you can do it with a pen and a page, right? But then there's also the tools that help you automate that, and the combination of them is something I can speak to. But I just want to clarify, is it the practical business skills and the tools, or which one?
Digitalizing. So it means we have to automate these things of income, and say, as much as the understanding part probably could be different. I could maybe have a bookkeeper to help me understand, but the generation of it, I think that's more important, because they'll ask you, do you have income statements? Do you have annual, statements and stuff like that? But I don't have. Interpretation is another thing. But I'm saying, because we are saying we are digitalizing things or whatever, digitalizing our businesses, it means the generation is a digitalization of the processes of generating income, balances, and whatever statements that are key to our businesses. You gave an example to say your parents, had a panel beating shop, and they would ask you to pay this person and pay this, and you ask them to say, is the business profitable? Which means probably chances are there was no income or statement being generated somewhere, somehow. So we are saying, if we are digitalizing these things, it means help us to digitalize the income, the balance sheet, and everything. Thank you.
Absolutely. So yes, there are tools. In fact, we're working with our key banking partners to provide that as part of the value proposition. To do exactly that. It's called spend management and expense management tools, which, because the reality is, once you put your transaction on a card, both the incoming and the outgoing, the data exists. So those platforms become part of not just putting a solution in or a card in a small business holder's hand, and that's where I guess the point I was trying about running the business, in order to accept payments versus running the business, those are the tools where it's, direct integration with accounting software, because when it comes to things like if you want to do your taxes, as an example, you need to have that in a structured way to submit it, and that in itself is a task. So yes, we are actively working. We do have solutions that globally exist, and locally as well. They are available at some of our banking partners, and we continue to work with them to try and get as many of those solutions out, because those are and I always say, for a small business owner who's a plumber, you want them to go out there and fix pipes and whatever leaking taps, not to be sitting and trying to reconcile these invoices and trying to find receipts and, chase up people for invoices, or sitting at a branch to try and get a statement. So we actively do engage with our banking partners, and I think one of the things is in digitizing this is not a sort of one-man job. I think that's where, when we always talk about the ecosystem, it's about ensuring that we can bring that data, but ultimately that it adds value to the entrepreneur or the small business owner, and that's the key challenge for us and all our partners as well.
Thank you. So we're gonna, because of time, we're going to open it up for, you're still here, so. Just 2 more questions. But when we come to training developments like this, I think it's important for us to listen and to learn from each other. So then I asked the simple question, is there anybody here that's running an accounting software business? You are? There she is. So already then it's a conversation between 2 of them, right? To help each other. This is business being done like practically right now. So you're going to have a conversation at a time, and then you're going to see how you work together. Fantastic. That's what it's about. It's in the room. It's in the room. Business is in the room. What you need is in the room, yeah. Don't have to look out far and search and Google and then no. It's in the room. It's right here. Mokatle home. Are we together? All right. There was a hand as well. Yes, please, can we? Thank you.
Okay. Sanbonani. Hi, Anina Life. Sanbonani. Ninjani. Okay, my name is Kamuhelo Mahlaule. I'm the founder of Know Your Word Mzansi Foundation. It is a non-profit company, and it does entertainment skills for disabled and disadvantaged within the community. We also do counseling and mentorship programs. So my question would be, I know I need to get a business card, right? So I go there, do you have assistance for a non-profit company like mine? Do you know if a person or a business have challenges and is facing things like requesting for funding, and you can see that I am making money, I do get sponsors, do you offer that kind of support to us? And do you also offer support such as opening doors? Because you can see that there's a business like a non-profitable business, and the money comes in the account, but what are the constraints, the challenges? If I'm not making any profit or I'm running at a loss, and I'm a business partner, do you have support systems placed for my business to grow? Do you also have platforms for us as much as we're using your cards and we're doing businesses throughout the communities and maybe nationwide? Do we have a platform to grow where I say, this partnership with Know Your Word is doing something there? Do you have support systems whereby we grow?
That's a lot of questions. Yo! I say bambe lapho sisi. Yeah. Khona la ngithi uzoma khona. Do you have any? All right. Let's hold it there. I'll give. Yeah, sure. You can.
I don't know if you guys ever watched the show called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but there's a part where you phone a friend. I'll invite my colleague Precious to answer, and I think that's a great question, and a lot about what we do is not just on technology, financial, is about how do we show up and from a social impact perspective, and Precious leads social impact for Visa, so I'll give her the opportunity to respond to your question.
All right. That was a very loaded question and a lot of things in there, so I'll try to answer from what I could remember the question. So in terms of platforms, for example, a platform like this one is one of the things that we're looking like, how are we supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses, like, you know, because creating spaces like this where we can come and we share and we provide access to our partners. So for example, you asked, just so that you understand how Visa works, we do not necessarily work directly with you. We work through our partners, like your shop-to-shop, like your Flash, like the banking partners. And then my phone decides to ring right just as I'm talking. So we work through our partners, and then we provide them with tools so that it is easier for you to transact when you are doing your businesses. Having said that, we also realize the need that access is an important aspect. So when we create spaces like this, to make sure that we bring them in the room, so that when you have questions, you can go to shop, you ask them, you know, then they can help you. We also have programs just around upskilling small businesses. We are currently running a program called, now I'm forgetting the name of the program. Cassandra? No, ITC? She Trades, yeah, it's called She Trades, which is focusing on women entrepreneurs. And part of that, I think it was you who was asking about, you know, the tools that you need to create your financial statements. So some of the things that we do there is, like for instance, when we are here, we are taking down all your questions so that we understand what are the challenges that you have. So that next time when we have an engagement, for example, if we realize that maybe just financial management is something that we really need to be focused on, then we bring in partners that can really help you on how to understand your finances. Yes, you've got the numbers, but how do you understand them, how do you use them, how do you leverage them so that you can grow your business? In terms of partnerships, we do not necessarily partner directly with you. We will partner with like T, who's doing this engagement, and then through them, then they can assist and work with you directly. So we have a number of partnerships. We have a program running with a Womb Hub, but that is focusing on women in STEM, and part of that, you know, there's the upskilling and the development, and we also provide microgrants. But usually our programs, if you do follow us on our social medias, when we do have these programs, you're always welcome to partake in that. But go look online for She Trades program with ITC. We have a webinar running on Thursday as well, and then we've got a few running, and then we'll be having an in-person workshop in Johannesburg in October. So just have a look out on our social media platforms.
Thank you very much. Can we get the mic? The last question. Do you have a mic, ma'am? Kubumkaida, da kumbawa. Da. Yes.
The people at the back, they're not getting any airplay.
They're not?
The people at the back with questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh, on Peggy side, tell you one.
What time is it?
Good morning, everybody.
Askis. Apology accepted. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am. Askis.
Good morning, and still good morning, everybody. My name is Kululwa Nyingane from Ekai Kitchen. We are a catering and events business. My question is to Visa, with your partners, do you guys have KPIs when you create these relationships? One of the issues that I have, especially with the banks, is that we are requested to have relationship managers, and unfortunately you don't get that full access of that person to assist you with your finance. And then when there's challenges between you and the relationship manager, you're then stuck with a bank that doesn't help you. A service you don't really get full access to, because the Green Bank has certain opportunities within their ecosystem. But however, if your bank or if your bank account is not on a particular level, they close it without any communication with you, not knowing which, okay, fine, this is a season where my bank is doing 100 Rand a day or 100 Rand a month. And then there's no communication between you and the relationship manager. So the question is, are there KPIs for the relationships that you have with the people that, or the partners that you have?
So, short answer is yes. I think, and I guess I touched on it earlier talking about running a small business, but the fact is, when you're engaging with banks or a relationship manager, the more informal your sort of flows are, the harder it is to actually have a conversation. Like the example I gave, when I asked my mom, she'll probably spend half an hour telling me about all the payments and everything else, and telling somebody and showing them is very different. So I think that's the challenge in terms of digitizing. If those flows are coming into your bank account, then that bank account won't become dormant. If the bank account doesn't become dormant, then you won't face a situation where that account's being closed. And I guess the reality is, like most things we do within banking and payments, we always try to balance two things. One, the customer experience, and two, the risk. Because if you are using a bank account or not using it, you don't even know where your card is, there's a risk that somebody will find it, will get your PIN, you know. So those are sort of the activities that the banks generally do to manage the risk. But on the converse side of that, it's not a great experience when you do want to use your card and you put it in the ATM and then it says, sorry, go to your branch. And then you're back to square one trying to get that level of service. So there is a sort of a halo effect or benefit in digitizing and actually formalizing all your activities with your bank, because then it means you have a better conversation with your banker. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations I had with my mom. Eventually I was like, okay, then the answer is no. You don't know how, just tell me who to pay, how much, done. And I think that's the part where it's not it's about it's about the skills and the tools, but also around being able to have a better conversation with your banker. And the reality is, you know, like most things, we judge a bank or a individual based on our own experience. You know, you can ask people at bank with 10 different banks and they'll give you 10 different answers around who's the best bank or if it's the best fintech. But I guess the biggest thing is the more prepared and the better equipped you are to have that conversation. And that's where the tools at which we continuously try and add to the ecosystem is about value. Because the point is, if we're just adding tools and technology for the sake of it, it's not going to add any value. But I think that's the level of, and I guess it's also the challenge that you can take back to your bank to say, what tools do you have for me as a small business owner? Like the question the gentleman asked me, that's a great question to ask to your relationship manager. You know, do you have any tools or partners? Because sometimes they don't have any tools themselves, but they can tell you, actually, this is the name of the software, or this is the type of, you know, relationship and partnership. So those partnerships are not exclusive to Visa or to the banks. But sometimes it's just, if you're asking the right questions, you got a much better chance of getting the right answer. Cool.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please can we put our hands together for Thashvir. Visa Commercial Solutions, B2B sales, and the market lead for South Africa. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Question also.
Oh, you have a question?
Yes.
Oh, you got the mic?
Yes, I got the mic.
Fika kanjani mic lapho?
I figure, that's case. So I figure. My name is Tokolo Tao, from a company called Bicycle, PTY Ltd. We specialize in consultations and multimedia company, and also we develop policies. My question is, it's based on your partnership, the partnership and the policy perhaps in line with monitoring cash flows and the policy and standpoint of Visa. I understand that Visa takes pride in terms of monitoring the cash flows and all the businesses and banks because they are the partners. So in one of the things that I've heard, they mentioned a product called One Voucher, that specifically one can buy a voucher and take the number and use the number elsewhere. So the question is that, is there perhaps a policy which is in line with our cyber security constitution or legislation, similar with the banks that says that if there's a certain amount of money that comes to your account, then your account will be blocked? Why I'm asking this question is because the amount of crime that we have in South Africa, it's based on online, basically, a cyber. So do you perhaps, let's say, for example, 20,000 comes to your account, and then the bank will cut or will close your account. So I just wanted to know, does a product like One Voucher has that policy? And what is your standpoint based on that?
So I can't speak to One Voucher in particular because I'm not familiar with the product. What I can say, every bank in South Africa is highly regulated in two things. On a consumer side, it's called Know Your Customer, KYC. So when you take your proof of residence and your copy of your ID, that is for them to perform the KYC. On the business side, it's KYB, Know Your Business. And I think the key point around that is if you are running a business and you're getting flows in, the reality is, I mentioned around the risk versus the customer experience. If there's all sorts of, and I guess South Africa is not immune to it, but in other parts of the world, but including South Africa, things like banks have to also look out for things like terrorist financing, where you see irregular monies flowing in. You have things like mule accounts, where people are using somebody else's bank account. So those all are on the financial institution to perform to ensure that if it is being flagged, it could be fraud, it could be, there's many different types of fraud. But the point is, if there is a breach, that someone in what we could refer to as the ecosystem pays for it. So what we as Visa do, if you purchase on a credit card, you have purchase protection on a lot of products to say if you buy and your goods don't get delivered, or when the goods are delivered, it was incorrect and you can't claim it back from the merchant. Those are things that you can claim back from the issuer. Those are the values from a bank perspective that we as Visa have as part of our value proposition and what we bring to the partnership to ensure that if there is fraud on your account, that it is protected, and that works a lot on our credit products. So there's those sort of benefits that are there to protect. And another good example on the business side is something we called liability waiver insurance. Sometimes employees, the people that you employ, also would get hold of your card and will make a purchase. If you don't have the visibility of your spend, it could be 6 months down the line that you realize, actually, this wasn't me, this wasn't related to the business, and that person has left the company. So it's those sort of things that are there as benefits to the product, but the reality is the compliance around knowing your customer, knowing your business, securing that ecosystem is everybody's responsibility, and that's also onto the consumers and the small business owners. A lot of how we protect the ecosystem comes from the PIN, starts with the PIN, the card, your access to your online banking, all of these things, and it's those sort of things that exist today. But the reality is, like most things, I always say the fraudsters and the scammers don't work. They don't work office hours. That's their full-time job. 24/7, they're looking for any vulnerability, and that's why it's one of our core tenets as Visa.
Thank you. Where's the mic? Keep the mic there with you. Thank you so much, sir. Much appreciated. One more time, a round of applause. Please, can you stand?